In 1272, the Low Countries of the Holy Roman Empire were in a period of unease. And when a cow was stolen, the veil of tension was pierced. What started as a seemingly minor crime spiraled into a brutal war set in the heart of medieval Europe. Our story begins in the county of Namur, a small feudal state in what is now southern Belgium. The region was part of the Low Countries, a patchwork of duchies, counties, and bishoprics. Each had its own rulers, its own ambitions, and centuries of grudges. The Prince-Bishopric of Liege was a powerful theocratic state nearby, often at odds with its neighbors. To the west, the County of Flanders, ruled by Guy of Dampierre, was wealthy and influential. The Duchy of Brabant and the County of Hainaut also sat nearby, each jockeying for influence. This was a crowded neighborhood, where disputes over markets, tolls, and trade routes could easily erupt into violence. In 1272, a jousting tournament was underway in the city of Seney, located in Condroz. While spirits were high and the crowds distracted in merriment, the theft of a cow occurred. The thief, Enguerrand de Jalhay of Namur, made off with the cattle successfully. Shortly after, he would attempt to sell that cow at a fair in Andenne. Unbeknownst to the peasant thief, the owner was also present and recognized his stock. He swiftly notified the bailiff of Condroz, Jean de Halloy, and Enguerrand was apprehended. In custody, he faced a difficult choice: return the cow and pay a fine, or pay with his life. He made the obvious choice. The cow was returned and the fine paid. Unfortunately, regardless of the promises made, he was summarily executed by the bailiff's men. Upon news of this loss, his lord of Goznes sought to leverage the situation. In an act of envy of the bailiff's position and an attempt to expand his own power, he conspired to take action. Aided by the lords of Sponton and Selles, he would launch an assault on the castle of Halloy, leading to its complete destruction. In an effort of retaliation, John of Halloy set a torch to the feudal territory of Goznes, lighting the firestorm that would engulf the region in conflict. A call to arms was made by Lord John of Goznes. His call was answered, escalating the scale and speed of the battle to come. The Marquis of Namur, Guy of Dampierre, in coordination with his closest allies, John the Victorious, the Duke of Brabant, and Lord Gerard of Derby, launched a sudden invasion of Hesbaye. Simultaneously, their ally, Count Henry V of Luxembourg, set forth an extensive and devastating assault on Condroz. Raids became organized campaigns. Fortresses were attacked. Trade routes blockaded. The Meuse Valley, one of Europe's most important arteries for commerce, was choked with neighborly violence. Unlike the grand battles of French and English history, the War of the Cow was brutal in a grinding and personal way. Armies didn't clash in open fields, but rather burned villages, destroyed harvests, and slaughtered peasants. Conflict swelled, and it was on April 17th, 1276, that Count Henry V had battled his way to Ciney, the origin of the war. He was met by a local army, 2,400 men strong, and led by none other than Jean de Haloy, the mayor and bailiff responsible for Enguerrant's untimely execution. On a misty morning, a grueling battle erupted at dawn, carrying on until sunset. The local force was outnumbered by Luxembourg, and as the smoke cleared, their leader, Jean de Haloy, along with 500 Condrusians, were slain. Though Luxembourg had won the battle, they lost 1,400 men in the fray. Reinforcements from the bishop's marshal, Robert de Forvy, had arrived too late for Ciney, and came upon a city completely besieged. They routed to the town of Dinant in an effort to gather more forces. In their absence, the city was razed, culminating in the burning of a church, where the remaining inhabitants of Ciney had sought shelter. Momentum in the conflict held. The following day, April 19th, 1276, the Duke of Brabant, known as John the Victorious, eradicated the city of Meath. However, these triumphs would not remain one-sided. In the year 1277, a coalition of Liégeois militias were victorious over Namur in the Battle of La Ward des Steppes. Chroniclers describe it as years of devastation, with thousands lost. For ordinary people, this was not a war of kings and crowns. It was neighbor against neighbor, with entire communities erased over honor, pride, and personal gain. As the violence raged, it became impossible to ignore. The dealings of the Low Countries weren't just local politics. They were also within the orbit of the Kingdom of France. Philip III, known as Philip the Bold, had recently inherited the throne following the death of St. Louis. Stabilizing his unruly northern frontier was top priority. Philip intervened, summoning the warring lords to negotiations. Under his great pressure, peace was imposed in the year 1278. The restoration of status quo ante bellum had been decreed. The war left deep scars. For Flanders, it was a reminder of its growing influence, as well as its friction with France. And for the people of the Meuse Valley, it was simply ruin. Generations would remember how a single stolen cow unleashed famine, fire, and war. The War of the Cow may sound absurd today, but in medieval Europe, where honor and status were highly valued, it's no surprise that something so small could spiral into catastrophe.